Welcome to Business Events TV. We have Matt Pearce, CEO of Talk2 Media. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. So you're saying welcome at my show?
I am. It's your show.
It is, thank you.
And we're a year ahead. Last year we spoke, you just took on the show. Now we're a year down the track. Tell me about it.
The longest year of my life.
I can imagine.
No, so what tell you about it? Well, we talked last year about all the things we were going to do. And by and large, we've done them to a greater or lesser degree. I mean, we had some ideas that we could make it much bigger, but we've got to learn to walk before we can run. Yeah. And the audience, our exhibitor audience, were keen to hear what we were saying, but some of them want to now see what it's like before they then join us. And we're pretty comfortable we'll get some of them back.
And what are some of the things you've implemented?
So really we based it around three things. People learn a lot when they're at an exhibition or an event, and whether that's personal or professional development. So they learn a lot, they want to meet a lot of people, and they obviously want to do business. So we broke those down into three components, and we've done the networking piece. We had a very successful evening yesterday, which really revolved around the ability for people to talk in a very pleasant ambience, lots of food, not too much noise, so they could talk. And that was good. We've also implemented networking breaks on the show floor. First one went well. We've only done one so far.
Excellent.
But again, that augurs well. Just give people a break. They can talk, but it's a different type of conversation when they're just having a break rather than when they're going through a buyer meeting.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. You actually embrace networking because everybody says, they actually come down and network. It's really a face-to-face thing about obviously doing business, but so you've actually quite embraced that.
So globally, one of the top three reasons always for people to go to a show is the networking. Right. And so you've got to create the networking events for them to be able to do that. The other things we've done is we did an education piece yesterday, which was we had 15 different sessions running, and we joined forces with PCMA, so the Professional Conference Managers Association out of Chicago, and we did a lot of education with them. We did some with SITE, so the Society of Incentive Travel, and then we also did some with ICA. So the idea is they know their stuff, we need their knowledge to be able to put something meaningful together. Again, the feedback from that was really good, so we're happy with that. And then the final thing is obviously the piece that we really need, the rubber hits the road, is the exhibitors and the hosted buyers. Yes. And the hosted buyer piece, I don't think I really understood just how much work we do with it, because the software we're using, EventSair, has been terrific, but it will only do, the algorithms behind matching a buyer and a seller can only do so much. Right. So we actually spend a lot of time back in the office working with both visitors and exhibitors to get as close to what we would call a perfect schedule based on the ingredients we had, so based on the mix of exhibitors and buyers. And again, the reports we're getting back now are, there's good conversations being had, and we hope obviously everybody converts into business. But we increased the hosted buyers, so we increased it by 50% from last year. Again, 50% of our hosted buyers are new to the show, never been here before, and 60% or thereabouts of them are from overseas. So we're trying to create a much broader geographic spread of our buyers rather than all from Australia, and that works.
So these 50% of new hosted buyers, where are they coming from?
Oh, I had to find that list.
That's amazing.
It's good. It's really good. Yeah. I suppose where they're coming from, I suspect they're always there. It just becomes a budgetary thing. So, we invested heavily into the show to bring them in, to give them a good experience. It's much more expensive bringing in international than domestic. But, the show we aspire to be is the Asia Pacific show. And rather like IMEX is the North American or the European show, we want to be the Asia Pacific show. To do that, you've got to invest. It's a big idea, and therefore you need to think about how you get there. And so we're happy with what we've done so far, but we know we've still got a long way to go.
It's a great start. But going back to the hosted buyers, is that because you put the special interest into the matching of these people that a lot more come along?
No, I think that came later. I mean, I think really what we did was look at, we actually did a whole lot of analysis on data on, right down GDP, movement of people, activity, what they did, their propensity to buy. So, for example, we have China and Indian buyers here because they're the emerging market, and there's a lot of incentive work coming out from there. So if we can bring Chinese and Indians with incentive work in now, that previously really was a market that wasn't being explored. So we've got 35 buyers from China, for example, and they've all been vetted, and we've run through everything, and they
it's
have
not like they're sending their brother.
No, and we really did have to work hard on these ones. But again, we've got the right person over there who's well known. She's again on the advisory board for the region for PCMA, as it happens. Although we found that out after we'd recruited her. But when you get people who understand the industry doing this, you've got a chance of getting the right people to come in. And she's reporting that the buyers are pleased that they've come down. So, we're finding the buyers, but that's finding them and then getting the right outcomes for them has been, as I say, where the work, and that I hadn't, when we spoke last year, I just, programs do that, don't they?
Yeah, well,
and they do to a point, and we've done the rest.
So you like the married at first sight of experts, of matching hosted buyers.
Yeah, there's a line there, I suspect, like there was last year. Married at first sight with these people. Do you know, I suspect, I wonder if that does happen. Maybe they do. Maybe they do business immediately. What we do hope, obviously, is that they've researched each other before they get here to see why they're seeing them, and so that they can move the business along. When ultimately shows seldom actually deliver a sale there and then, but they accelerate the sales process.
It's a relationship.
So,
That's it. And tell me about the design of the show. It's actually looking quite neat and contemporary, and they're all little booths.
So, some of the feedback we were getting was that it becomes expensive to exhibit in the show, and that's true of all shows, because what we charge for people to be here is only a percentage of what they actually have to pay by the time they're built a stand and so forth. And so we went out to the industry and said, look, shelf scheme isn't the answer, because the industry doesn't want that for this sort of show. And actually Decorative Events came up with a sort of what we call shelf scheme, but it's really a customized shelf scheme. And ultimately what they've done is been able to use the technology that's on hand. So printing onto material that can stick onto a piece of wood has gone up so much, the quality is so strong that you can apply all of those things. So we've got this sort of customized shelf scheme that can have different pictures on it, and they just strip them off and then use them again next time. And so exhibitors don't have to commit to storing something, building for 3 years and so forth. They can actually swap it up on a year-to-year basis. But it gave a cleanliness to the show and a feel that really it hadn't had. And obviously others will continue to have custom stands, and that's fantastic because they look great too. And it's the mixture of having both and giving the opportunity of not necessarily having to spend a fortune on building a custom stand, that just meant the entry level was more affordable, and given that we're about proving ROI, that was good for everybody.
It's big. Tell me about the Ideas Academy.
Well, Ideas Academy is education just on the show floor, and so we've got a variety of sessions there, and we've tried to partner with people. So there's people who book events that we'd often think about, for example, EAs or PAs. And so we've got together with the magazine, and they're creating some content. And we dragged over some of the speakers that we had from the knowledge program we were running yesterday, and we've put those in there. So we've been able to lift the game a little bit on the knowledge on the Ideas Academy, and they seem to be well subscribed, so that always helps.
Excellent. And the day before the show opened, you had a whole bunch of knowledge-based sessions.
So that was yesterday, and as I said, there was about 15 sessions in there, and they were really so the most that we'd ever seen or heard of before here was last year. They had about 300 delegates go through an education sessions. We had 450 to 500 day in the morning and over 600 in the afternoon. So we were really pleased.
Absolutely.
And a big tick on that. And actually we also got together with people like Guide Dogs Victoria, because they do this thing called Dialogue in the Dark.
I love it.
And it's not just about putting everybody in the dark and saying that's how it is to be blind or have low vision. that they have a whole sort of structured program around this so that you understand. And I was talking to a host buyer last night who'd gone through it, and she said she had a blind sister, and she thought she understood blindness until she did the session. Now she's walking away with something that has absolute value to her and her family. But and so it's not just CSV for the sake of CSR for the sake of it. This is actually corporate social responsibility. Just bring it to life, if you like. And so those things are really good for us.
Yeah, good, really nice. And going on to next year.
Next year, well, bigger and better.
Because we're going to do it again next year.
I mean, our aspiration is to keep growing the show, and we will. But I think we've already we've got quite a few notes of what we would like to do differently.
Yep.
But a lot of that's basing on assumptions. So kind of what we put in place, we're getting good feedback to, and so we need to just validate that and make sure that what we want to change needs changing, or rather than just because we didn't like it being red and we want it blue, we need to make sure that it's based a bit more on subjectivity. And so, we do have plans. It really revolves around taking what we've got and making it bigger. As we win the trust of the people that we're working with and we help deliver the show, that will give us license to try new things. And as we do that, then we can take it in different directions. But at the moment, we're very comfortable with taking it and growing it a bit more, making sure we have the right buyers and obviously the right exhibitors.
And how's the association with MCB?
MCB, great. I mean, once we all came to terms with the idea that people shouldn't see this as a Melbourne show. It's held in Melbourne, but that doesn't make it a Melbourne show. I mean, IMEX in Frankfurt isn't a Frankfurt show, it's a European show. Right. And once we all agreed that, and I mean the MCB and ourselves...
Hang on, does that mean it's coming to Sydney?
Once we agreed that it can be held in Melbourne. It doesn't need to move, it just needs to have the right mix of exhibitors and visitors. And you'll have seen that the Leaders Forum we ran, for example, was sponsored by the ICC. And that isn't Jeff Donaghy trying to get one over on Peter King at all. They want to brand themselves and position themselves as a thought leader. And so they took that opportunity. I mean, we get on very well with the Melbourne Convention Centre and the Melbourne Bureau because they're fully vested in what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so you'll see in the show today, and just cast your mind back 12 months ago, and think of the cafes that were being run. And if you look at the cafe that's now here, you walk to the cafe, there's no prepackaged food, it's a deli offering, they've got it's worth having a look. But that shows you kind of the partnerships that we're trying to engage, because this is an opportunity for Melbourne Convention Exhibition Centre to show off what they can do, and who better to do it to than the audience that use it every day. So doing those sorts of things, that's been fun. So we don't want to move anywhere because we don't need to, but we just need to make it work for everybody.
And business events in 5 years, where do you see it?
I don't see business events dying off. I mean, I have a fundamental belief that human interaction, face-to-face, is what we all do best. We start from an early age learning to read signs of what's being said and how it's being said, and what somebody said that most of what we hear is cues, not words, and you don't get that unless you're face-to-face. So I see business events growing, and actually what happened in magazines when I was in magazines was they niched down, so people went deeper into an area, but a narrow area, and I suspect that'll be true of business events too.
I know it's a bit of a long interview, which is lovely. Tell me about AI. What's happening about this? And there's a lot of talk around that.
There is a lot of talk about AI, and so it was put very succinctly by Alan Pryor from KLCC yesterday. On the A to Z of AI, we're firmly at A, and he was talking about the whole industry. I mean, we understand it, and we can see how banks have used AI, and the new online banks have disrupted the old banks by using it, and it is coming, it's there, but we don't really all understand how it gets used. It's a bit like virtual events. That didn't work because we still like to meet face to face. AI will be an enabler of what we do. The chatbots and all of those things will help us be able to give a richer experience, but in isolation It's just tech.
So we're not going to see robots walking around in the next near future?
Not in the next couple of years, although they are in hotels. So there's some hotels.
That's right. Yes, they do. That's right. They deliver room service.
Yeah. So don't say never, but
right.
not yet.
Yeah. Matt, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Until next year, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you next year.
That's it.
Okay. Take care.